Hello everybody, welcome back to Spruverse, my scale model universe. People of Earth, welcome to part 2 of Build, the Starfleet tug from Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock, and of course subsequently in 4. Timeslipcreations is where this excellent sort of scale kit comes from, and it's all resin. And if you are just tuning in and you don't understand any of what I just said, go back to part 1 and you'll see we break down the parts, we look at it, and here we are. Everything is primed once, so just for me to take a look at it and find out where my bad spots are and what I've got to do to clean it up. And then I'm working on my lighting design. I've made some progress on that. The thing about this kit is every time you go to kind of do a rough assembly, it's kind of like, I feel like I'm playing whack-a-mole, because you put something in and then something falls down, then you put another thing in and the other thing falls down, but it's okay, it's all good. So looking at the front of this, that's the cockpit. There's this frame that hides our clear glass, or in this case it's a piece of vacuum foam, and that sits like this. When I let go, you can kind of get to see what that looks like. Then the fan blade assembly is all primed and cleaned up, and I'll talk about that just briefly. That's going to sit on top like that, and that does thatage. And then the business end of this, which let me just slide this over just a hair here, and we can talk about the business end of this, which is, it's a sort of funky design. Who knows? Far be it from me to judge. I am not using these. Not using them. Now you're all going to go, oh no, it's not going to look like this, and you'd be correct. Now I'm taking a little bit of creative license here, because I don't like the way that looks. For me, I don't like the way it looks. I wanted something a little crisper and just for me a little more I don't know, old school. So I have these clear parts that I had in my stash. Here they are. And what I've done is I've gotten myself a clear piece of acrylic dome. I have put some Tamiya clear red on that, and that has given me that. And now, if I can do this on camera without making a complete fool of myself, which I do on a daily basis, I'm going to just see if I can, and then get this into camera like this. And that's what I'm going for. Okay? Now, that might offend and upset some of you, and others will go, okay, well, let's see how that looks at the end. And I appreciate that. I do. Because I think it's going to look pretty cool. So what I have to do, though, is I've got to get some detail on here. So I'm going to get a band of black is going to go around here. And then I'm going to get some silver or some copper on the inside band. And that will do a little light blocking and also concentrate my light source a little better. And that should take care of my engines. Now, a little funky, these tubes that you have to put together are not the greatest in terms of, you got to do a lot of cleanup, but I've been working at it, and there are these little teeth here that this rear piece is going to sit in, and I've been doing a little bit of test fitting here, and they are not cooperating just yet. They're not cooperating, but I assure you they will. And they're supposed to sit in these tubes like that, and that sort of lines it up. But we've got all kinds of issues here in terms of how clean this edge is. And when you put these into place, and you drop this rear piece in like this, and then you hold this up to camera so that you can see that. Now I'm going to have my clear acrylic is going to be in here, but there's going to be I've just got some alignment to do to make sure that's flush, and I'm probably going to end up having to putty this, but that's as good as I can get it, and it's not terrible. It's going to be fine. And so that takes care of the that piece of it. Now, curiously enough, the older kits, as I understand it, had a this I guess intake valve, or it's something like an intake valve. I don't really know the acumen, so forgive me. But in previous incarnations, I understand it, this was hollow, and now it is. Now, forgive my fingers, okay? I stupidly touched a chemical that it's reacted with my fingers, and that's what you get. So I apologize for that. Don't freak out. But now this is solid, so I don't have to do anything to that, and that's a result. That's terrific. So that's the entire bulk of everything. So what I have to do now is I'm just going to start on some basics of the lighting process. So if I can carefully hold this up for you and go through, I need to light this cockpit. So I'm going to pull out a couple of lights and see what I can do to light this, and obviously try to get some light into the console top, so that looks like it's alive, and perhaps something on the back wall, just to give it, just to give it some ambience. I've got a floodlight here in the front I've got to take care of, and then, because I'm aware of what I'm doing now, I'm going to unmask the whole thing to show you the bottom. See, I still have a piece fall out. We're going to get a nav light or a beacon light here, and then there are a couple of lights that appear in these squares here, and I think there's also supposed to be in the rear here. Let me put this back together so you can see this. In the rear here, there is supposed to be some light there coming out of these holes on both sides. Now, seems like an awful lot, but hey, when you think about it, in the practical sense of it, it's a tug, right? It needs to be seen. It's moving around starships. It doesn't want to be crushed, and it doesn't want to be hit. So it kind of makes sense that it would, have a little bit of quite a little bit of light. I just don't want it to light up like a bloody Christmas tree, but we'll see. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to paint my my engine lights. I'm going to paint those up, get some paint on those. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to source the rest of my lights. And then after I've done that, I'm going to take one final look at this just to see where I might need some more cleaning up. And we'll hit this with one more coat of primer just to be absolutely sure we've got everything looking beautiful. And then we can start doing some rough assemblage, but not before I've done some detail work on this. And I might do this on camera because it's going to be fun just to sort of play with this a little bit. So that is what's coming up next. So let me prep for that, and then we'll... Okay, let's go through the lighting plan before I start to do some assemblage. I just wanted to make sure that we're all on the same page in terms of what I'm doing. Okay, so starting with the cockpit control surfaces. There are printers finished printing. That's good news. All right, there are, in this dashboard, there are these little squares. I've drilled them out, and I'm going to insert these little chip lights, these SMD chips. I've got orange, I've got yellow and green. They're not flashing or anything. I'm not going to do anything like that because I think it's too much. But they're a nice scale. There we go. They're a nice scale. Let me reach over here and show it to you in this camera. They're fun, and this is I try to be very aware of scale here because I think the 3mm are just too big and they look a little clumsy. So I've got those in yellow, and I've also got those in green. Now I do have a little light here that I think I'm gonna put this in the ceiling, hidden, and this is blue. This is a blue. It's a nice blue, and of course, I'm always see here. Let me show this to you. This is a really nice blue, and it punches really well. So that's going to give off a lot of light. Very cool. So I'm going to have yellow green in the control surface. I'm going to have a blue above, and I'm going to have a green in the rear wall. And I'm hoping that yes, some of it's going to wash each other out, but you know, if you look down on the surface, you'll see color. If you look up, you'll get this lovely kind of blue wash, but it'll be very subtle. And there'll be something in the back wall. And speaking of that back wall, I just added one little accent note here, which I've put on the wall. You won't really see it, but I'm going to put my green light in here. Because there just wasn't a lot going on that wall. I may even still put some pipage, I don't know. They just used a couple of aircraft landing gear struts. I don't know if that's was on the actual filming miniature or not, I don't know. Okay, I've got my warm white flashes for the top and the bottom. I've got warm white for these sides, and of course, as you know, we've got the pulsating reds in the engines, and that's it for me. That's all I'm doing. That's more than enough for this model. I have painted the outside core of these of my rear lights in the black, and then I'm going to go ahead and touch this up in silver on the inside, and that will give it a sort of a little more of an honest kind of engine feel. And of course, these will be capped with these lovely domes. And what I like about this is it's a really nice kiss to Star Trek. You know, the nacelle warp drive engine. So I like that technology feel, and I still think it's an awful lot better than that. But you know, far be it from me. Far be it from me. But that's what I'm doing. with all of my lights. Okay, so that is the lighting plan. I've got to install a whole bunch of this stuff before I can go any further, because that's kind of important. I am going to now go ahead and light block the inside of this. I'll do a black, and then I'll probably come back with a white, although I'm not sure about it. But I'm going to light block all of this too, so we don't get any light leaks. So that's what I'm going to do. As soon as I have, well, I'm going to do that first. I'll get a coat of black on that, and anywhere else where I think I have a risk of a leakage. Again, in the flood in the rear, or in the front of the tub underneath, I've got that flood too, and that's going to be a 3mm. It's the only 3mm I'm using in this kit, so we will put a 3mm in the front of that, in the front there. Okay, so that is the lighting plan. I think it's a good one. We will come back as soon as I have been able to get this light blocked, start to get some of the wiring in before I start painting, and then we'll start to, I think we'll start to look at these fins at the rear here. These fins that make up the I believe this is the tractor beam that pulls the ships, and that'll be in the back. Now, what I am going to do is I'm going to paint my tractor beam pieces before I get them installed. I'm going to give them a coat of black paint, and then I'm going to come back with a dark gray, and just a hint on the tips of them, just a hint of gunmetal. And I think that will serve us quite nicely on those. And then we will not install those until we've painted the base color in here, because there's no way for me to keep this super clean without making sure that everything else around it is painted first. Okay, so it is progress. It doesn't look like it, but it is progress, and we will now proceed. So, as you know, I primed everything with my Duplicolor Gray primer filler. I love that. And then after that, I hit it with some of my Insignia Gray, Vallejo. And that's the 71.279 for those of you who are following along in the playbook. And then after that dried, I hit it with some Vallejo, some Citadel white. And the reason why I did that is because it's not a white. So now it might look white under these lights, but I assure you, those color combinations have really done a nice job. Now, I'm ready to sort of take a sander to this now, and really start to get ready for final coat. But at this point, I can actually start doing some minor construction. Now, the first thing I have to do is I have to get these scoops on, which everybody knows were obviously off of an aircraft, an F-14 perhaps, but they're going to sit here like thatage, and what I'm going to do is get those glued into place, and then I can start looking at what I have to putty. And I'm also going to find my sweet spot here for where my rod's going to go down to my base. Most likely I'm going to be somewhere around here, right down in here. And what I want to do is I definitely want to drill that out before I get these on, just because it's going to make it a lot easier for me to lay this down on the drill press and get that nice and square. So that's what I will do now. I've made some progress on the cockpit. The control surfaces are underway, and they're looking like that. So now I've got to install my lights. I've been doing some detail work and picking off some things. So that's looking nice. And I've been adding some detail to the rear wall. I put some pipes in. I put a little greebly in, and there's going to be a green light in the center there. And I added this piece here. And, you know, it struck me because some of my comments are always very helpful. And one of my subscribers, and somebody who I've been getting to know and really enjoy conversing with, is Elliot Brown, Fedoratron. And if you don't know Elliot, he's an absolute gentleman. He's a lovely guy. He's always very kind, to be detailed and thoughtful about his comments and his commentary about the builds, and I appreciate it very much. And we do enjoy having some conversation. I don't always agree with him, but I do appreciate him. And he made a comment that I actually started to ponder, and that was that it was curious to him why a, quote, minor player in the Star Trek world has become a model. And, you know, I thought to myself, you know, that's really sort of interesting, because first of all, the fact that it's in the Star Trek universe really appeals to me, and the fact that it's an unusual subject appealed to me too. So I love the obscurity of that, but it did get me thinking about the fact that I think there's an opportunity here to sort of add my own details and make some changes to my ship, and add some details and to my tug. And so that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to try and copy what exactly is seen on camera, because trust me, those flybys are ridiculous. Now, there is a filming miniature that there's photos of that flapping around, but they're not very detailed in my opinion, unless I haven't seen them all. And I do think they kind of didn't really do an awful lot to kind of detail this out and make it look cool. So I'm going to try and do my version of some of those details. Now it's going to look exactly like every other tug, but we'll point out some of the little details that I've added when we do our final reveal, and I go through my beauty shots with you, and then we can talk about those details, and you can let me know whether you thought it added or subtracted to the subject. But that's what I'm doing. So things are coming along quite swimmingly. Everything is ready to go. My lighting is ready to go. So that's the next step here is I'm going to make sure I get my post situated so I know where that's going. And I want to do that before I start doing any other work on this, because as I said, it's going to be a lot easier for me to do that. Now, and while I was sort of contemplating all of this and working this morning, I had a mail call. And the reason why I'm sort of going off on the tangent of a mail call during a build is because Keith Tomlinson over at Cosmic Scale Models was kind enough to send me some files for some pilots. Oh yes. So I want to show you something really cool here. And also I've scaled mine down just a little bit, and I think it's going to make a world of difference. But I just wanted to show you these because they're wonderful. Look at this. So this is what came with the kit. That's what came with the kit. Notice I glued the arm on. I would have had to have done a little bit of puttying there. But that's what came with the kit. And this is from Keith. Look at that. Perfect. He's incredible. And, you know, great detail on that face. So I couldn't be happier. Couldn't be happier. And I've got a left and a right. Now he sent me the files. I printed these, and as you can see here, I'll show you. I'll put them both up together. We've got mirror images, so I can have one here, or I can have one here, or I can have them straight ahead, whatever. But I've got two really cool figures, so I could not be happier. So thank you, Keith. And he also is now sending out, for your enjoyment, the Jeffrey Fink designed Matt Jeffries concept shuttle. Oh yes, here it is. Look at this. Absolutely fantastic. Great fun. Now, if you've ever hung out over at Aztec Dummy, the good and geniusly talented Lou Dalmeso over there, otherwise known over here at Spruverse as the Guru, built a much larger version of this, and of course it was at Wonderfest. So if you're online and you just go to Wonderfest 24, there's plenty of videos where you will be able to see his larger scale version of this. And so he built this, and I am now building, I'm going to build Keith's version of this, which is available on the Cosmic Scale Models website. So there you go, Cosmic Scale Models. It'll be on their website. So Keith, thank you, sir. I hope we can run into each other at Telford this year. I'm going to try and desperately get there and drag Lou along with me. We'll see if I can make it. But anyway, so I've got figures, and I couldn't be happier about that. So I'm going to get that hole drilled for my rod, and then I'm going to start working on these scoops and getting those into position, gluing them into position, and getting some putty on those, and we'll start to see if we can make some of these seams go away. And then once I've done all of that, I can do some more sanding, because we need to get another coat on this just for tonality. Okay, lots going on, but we are, believe it or not, making some progress. I'm very, very, very encouraged today. But anyway, it's important to see this because I want you to see what we're dealing with. Not terrible. It's not terrible. It's not embarrassing. I mean, you know, we've got work to do, obviously. Okay, so this is the rear view of this piece. Here's the side view. And we can see right here where my blade is, we've got a gap that we need to work on. And we've got gap on the inside, as you can see, on both sides. Not terrible. And here. Now, I couldn't get these to lay any flatter than that. Oh, I just got to see. I forgot to do this this seam here. What I'm doing is I'm putting in my gap filling glue quite liberally, and then I'm going to hold that down for just a second, and then obviously I'm going to come through now. Oops, there we go. I'm going to come through with my epoxy putty and clean this up. And you know, it's a little pigeon-toed, but it's not terrible. And when you put the cowlings on the front here, it will go away. And remember, my cowlings don't have to be filled in. They are as they should be. And that's going to be fine. That's going to be fine. And I'm not worried about that seam, because it appears as though we've got some panel lines there, which I need to scribe out just a little more anyway. But these are in. And what I'm going to do now is go ahead and get this seam taken care of with some epoxy putty. And then after I've done that, we can flip it over, and we can start working on these rear engines, because I've got to get these pieces situated and my lights installed. So we will do that as soon as we have done the puttying to this piece right here. Let me just sort of bring you up to speed with where I am. I wanted to stop and sort of memorialize this so you could see step by step what I'm doing. The first thing I did was here is I drilled out my hole for my lamp post that I'm using, and that just screws into a box slot here, which I've epoxied to the back here, and I've braced it. I've raised it up and I've braced it, so that is pretty solid. And then I went ahead and I started the puttying process. Now I'm using Infini's epoxy putty just to kind of get this in you know, start to rough it in. But you can see it's sort of starting to rough in here, and I'm going to let that dry, and then that can all be sanded down. But the next thing I need to do is I need to bring this back together right here and get this down, and then I'm going to start working on these gaps. But I can't do that until I'm absolutely sure that my lights or my engines are even, and they're looking pretty good. So I'm pretty happy with them. So I'm gonna lock that in right now, and then I can go from there. It's a lot of kind of tugging and picking and futzing, because none of this is even. But it'll look pretty good, and it looks pretty good now. But we're going to get this all epoxied up and get this glued up and clamped up, and then we'll start to clean up these edges. And of course these lights are in, and so that's good, and that takes care of any light that I had planned. Everything else is going to go in the base. So that's the next thing, is just to sort of get this all tidied up now, glued in nice and solidly, and start working on some of these seams. So that's what I'm going to do now. Okay, quick check-in. I have got my first coat of Bondo on after all the seams are in. Everything's looking quite good. I've got to let all that dry now. And once that dries, I can start the sanding process, and we will putty and sand and putty and sand and putty and sand until we get into this beautiful Zen yoga-like trance state in which we just keep saying to ourselves, it's going to get better. Now, it's all part of the fun of it. I mean, the puttying and the sanding, you know, that's what we do now. We're going to make this look beautiful. But anyway, everything is in, and it just needs to dry now. And what I do is, and again, I'm talking to those people who don't know, not to those who do. So for those who do know, don't roll your eyes. Be kind and be patient with all the rest of us. You let your Bondo or your spot putty get to a rubbery state, and then you can sculpt it. Don't let it get hard and then try to sand it. Get it to a rubber state, sculpt it, and your life will be so much easier when you go to sand. And so that's what we did. And so we'll let that go off now, leave it alone, and move on to something else. Okay, in the spirit of moving on to something else, we're moving on to something else. My base. I picked an oval. These are just pine bases you can get anywhere. And I've got this wonderful system that I found. It's a little smaller than your standard lamp rod. And what I like about it is it has this wonderful system where you can actually screw several pieces together. You know, they thread together, and you can make them larger or smaller as you please. And they have this plinth, and because they have a plinth, you have an opportunity here to it's a flange. It's a built-in, come on, focus. There you go. It's a built-in flange. And that flange allows you to countersink. So you know, in the past I would try to get a washer and hide a larger hole or whatever. No, the countersink works beautifully with these. You can find them on Amazon. And that has now been bolted to the base here. And I have taken a routing bit, and I have routed my line out to hide my wire. And that'll go to my power source, because everything's going onto one power source. There won't be any switches on the base. It'll be probably some kind of a click switch on the wire, a la, you know, just like you would with a regular lamp. And then we will put a nice velvet cover on the bottom of that to hide all of that. And that is a thing of beauty. And I've done this in a black hammered Rust-Oleum, and I really like the black hammer. It works really well for my fantasy and sci-fi models, and I like the ovalness of this. I think it's going to really sort of allow this model to sit in absolute grandeur on this base. Okay, so base completed. I'm going to get the power source sorted out. And then as soon as we've done with our puttying and all of that stuff, we can move on, knowing that once I get all of my wiring in, I'm going to have a really easy time getting into this base. And I love that. I love that notion that I'm not going to have to fight with this. It's all ready to go. Okay. Base completed. Now we carry on. We'll come back and look at how the sanding and puttying is going, and when you see it, it will probably be about 2 or 3 stages in, so that we can advance the ball, as they say. I know I said earlier that we were going to come back after I'd puttied and sanded and puttied and sanded and puttied and sanded, but as I'm sitting here, I'm thinking to myself, you know, there is a kind of weird satisfaction I get out of this, because you're starting with lipstick on a pig, and hopefully you're going to try to turn the beast into a beauty. But I was also sitting here thinking, why should they out there in YouTube land get to see the finished piece and I have to sit here and do it? I thought, no, you're going to have to sit there and watch me do this just for a minute or two, because I do think this is an important part of the process, and it gets lost sometimes. And I know the videos can get long when you do goofy things like this, and it has nothing to do with tutorials really, or even sharing. But then there's a part of me that says, hold on a minute, it does. It has a lot to do with it. It has a lot to do with, the quality of your finish and how things are presented. And so I do think it's important to show that the work does get done behind the scenes. Years ago when I was making television shows, especially ones where we would do some kind of a renovation. We did a show called Monster House, which was part of Monster Garage. I mean, even on Monster Garage, we had our little elves come in at night and actually do all the work, because it couldn't get done during production. And I feel like sometimes when when these videos get cut together, it doesn't really show the amount of work that has to go in to actually getting these things, these works of art, and they are works of art, to where they can be painted and look finished. So I've got files and sponges and sanding sticks, and I've got my Proxon little corner drill here, which I love to use. And I'm just going to keep plowing away at it. But I thought I would take a couple of minutes, and that's all it took, was just a couple of minutes to share and let you know what I'm doing. And so I'm just working on these engines right now, and I'll continue to get this smooth, and then we'll go to one more round of puttying. But the next time we go, I'm gonna be sort of a little more nuanced with the work, and making sure that it all gets smooth, because a lot of the work I did to get those engine details painted up, sadly, it has to be retouched. But that's okay, because it's an important step to get some paint on on something so you can start to see how things look. But I'm really happy with this, and I think this is gonna be a beauty when she's done. I mean, obviously there's one more big seam to do, and that's when the top of this tub gets joined. But that shouldn't be nearly as complicated, assuming I can get both sides lined up. I had a bit of a difficult time getting this other side lined up. It just didn't want to go. But it's gone now, and so we are in good shape. Well, if you're like me and your figure painting is sort of going to lose to a 5-year-old with a set of crayons in an elementary school and an art class, although I am desperately trying to improve, I was taught a little trick a few years ago by an older statesman of the industry, and he turned me on to the pink brown, which is the accent color in the washes. You know, this is the same line as the panel liners. And what you do is you take your figure, and you just literally put this, you just dab it on the face and let it get in all of the crevices like that. And when that dries back, it pulls out all the features, and you have one face. No waiting. This one over here, this one's been drying a little bit, and just let it continue to dry. And just like with your panel liners, if you've got a little bit too much, it's a little too heavy, just a little bit of your enamel thinners on a very small little brush. You can use a little brush. You don't have to use a cotton bud, because sometimes cotton buds, they'll pull off their fibers on things. You can use a little brush and some thinners, and you can soften that down, but you get some nice facial features. And that is a result, because now I've got faces that stand out, and I didn't have to work that hard. Not that I'm not willing to work that hard, but you know, I mean, through this giant bubble of a windshield for this tug, you're going to see an awful lot, which is the good news. But it'll be it'll be softened by the light and everything else like this. But we'll be able to pick out the features of these faces now, and for me, that's a result. Almost there, dangerously close, dangerously close. I've got just a few little pinholes I'm working on that just require a little bit of my attention. But other than that, everything is in. It's had several rounds of putty and sanding and puttying and sanding, and at a certain point it's diminishing returns, but we've got the bulk of it. I think that if you're going to get this kit, or you have this kit, one of the things that I recommend you do when you do your dry fit is look to see whether or not your rear engine plate here, this piece here, can sit flush on its back. It's very thin. I didn't do this, but I'm recommending you do. Under the grid here, under this grid, get yourself some strip styrene and glue it underneath to create some ribs. You'll strengthen this piece. Now, you might not have the issue that I had, which is mine was very thin, very, very thin. And what I should have done, and I didn't do, was when I had a little bit of extra epoxy putty made up, is went ahead and put it into the top section here to give it a little girth, give it a little weight. The reason why I didn't is because my inset tubes were not able to sit nicely. I had to do a lot of sanding and grinding. It doesn't sit flush. The molds have definitely seen better days. Okay, so that's just a quick recommendation. Everything is done now. I have put in my floodlight here, which you can see here. Here it's in, and I've put a little tulip in it to blacken that up. And I've stuck a little bit of silly putty in the hole there. I've got a little bit of puttying to do. I'm going to let all this dry, and then what we'll do is we'll start getting some paint on here. I'm going to go insignia gray, and then I'm going to go with a white from Citadel. And I like it because it's an off-white. It's a dirty white. It's not a clean, pure white. It's not white. And that I like. And then, of course, after it's had all of its weathering and everything else like that, it's going to come down quite a bit. But I like those tones for my spaceships. I don't like to go towards the brighter, the warmer yellows in the paint. And white is just too cold and stark. And it can make these things look a little plastic. Anyway, that's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. Okay, so a little bit of cleanup here to do. Then this is golden. My tub is sitting on here really nicely. It's just absolutely behaving itself when you put it down. I don't know why, and I'm not going to complain, but it's sitting nicely. And so there that is. And you can see that she's looking quite tug-like. And then once I've got this base coated, and I'm gonna clean up and finish the back deck, then I can install my tractor beam fins that go along the back, and that'll take care of the back. And then I can start concentrating on the rest of the lighting, which is all going to go to a single battery box. I love my battery boxes. I've talked about these in the past. I'm not going to put a battery somewhere, and I'm not going to put a line in this with a click switch. I've changed my mind. I'm going to use my classic battery boxes. They're cleaner. And what I love about my battery boxes is as long as my models have an umbilical, I can go around the shelves and plug in my battery box. It's universal, and I can turn the power on to any of my models, unless of course they require a little more juice. Then I've gone to a wall wart. Okay. Progress. I love progress. Okay, we're getting ready to begin to install our tractor beam panels for the rear here. And what I've got to do is just make sure everything gets lined up correctly, because as they're leaning right now, this side has a little bit, if you leave it flush, this one, if you leave this one flush, it has a slight angle to it. If I tip this up to go straight, it takes this off the deck, which feels right to me, and so that needs to be done. And I don't know whether it's going to need to be puttied underneath or not. I'm not entirely sure, but that's what I'm doing there. And then there's a small one that sits on the deck next to it, like this. And that takes care of these. And what's interesting is as you try to line these up, you start to see how this is supposed to live. Now, interestingly enough, if I leave this flush like this, it doesn't look terrible, but it doesn't look right. I don't know. It doesn't look right, but it doesn't look terrible. And then as you drop down onto the deck, you get these fins here, like this. And they just go along like this. And so they have to be lined up one by one. And that is going to have to be done by eye. So that's what I'm not sure on yet. I'm going to take one more quick look at some of my reference photos. Yeah, I'm gonna take a quick look at some reference photos, and then we're going to proceed to install these and get them all nice and lined up. That will then allow us to continue with the painting process. But I need to get these installed. Now it's time to do that. But then I went ahead and I laid down the Citadel Ghost White. It's a nice color because it's a flat color to begin with, which I like, but it's also it's a slightly off-white. It doesn't have as much of that brightness to it, that intensity to it. But you wouldn't know that under these lights, but you got to trust me. So everything has a really nice base coat on it, and things are really starting to come together, so I'm super happy. I've got the floodlight in the front. Now I'm going to get the rest of the lights on. I'm going to wire everything in so that all the lights are in. I've got a few, my strobes and my side floods have got to go in. I'm going to get those in now, and then we're going to go ahead and start working on the final coat, the final of this paint job. We are going to end up with a little bit of a funky seam right here-ish, if I can get my fat fingers out the way and show you this seam. There it is. There, that seam has to be worked on. Now that's not flush, obviously. That'll go down flush, but it will still need a little TLC. So let me get the rest of the lights on, or in, as I should say, and then we'll start to do our final pass of color. And after we've done our final pass of color, I can get a gloss clear coat on this for decals. Once decals go on, I can then do weathering, and we will be finished. Don't worry, that's not in the next segment. Okay, chipping away at it, we're getting there. The next thing I have to do is, as I said, I'm going to get these lights in, and then I'm going to concentrate on getting this lip in. There's this underlip here that belongs on the front of this, and that is what the windshield is gonna sit in, and it does go in here quite nicely. I checked the fit, so that shouldn't be too complicated. That shouldn't be too complicated to get in, and that will look like thatage. But obviously, I've got my cockpit control console to go in. My folks have to go in. The rear has to go in, and also my top. I guess it's a venting system of some kind for the engines. That's what I'm assuming it is. But we are getting there. Okay, so what I've done is I put everything basically together, and what I'm now going to concentrate on is this. There's some decals that need to go on these the control surfaces here that I'm going to take care of before I do anything else, and there's a couple I might put on the back wall. And I'm also going to try to test fit my my pilots here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to just see whether or not they need to be. Oh, they definitely need to be. Yeah, they need to be in their seats. So I need to get them raised a little bit, because I'm just not quite. Yeah, I'm not quite high enough. So I could actually glue those to the back wall and I'd be fine. And that'd actually look pretty cool. So, okay. So I've got my seats. I'm going to put my decals in. You'll notice here that everything is starting to look pretty decent. Let's take a look here. So that's my inside. There's quite a bit going on, and there'll be a lot more once the decals are in. So that's pretty good. Everything is as it should be. So I'm relatively happy with it at this point. So the next step in the process is to make sure that we just get everything aligned correctly, and then it's going to get its final coat of paint here. But I'm going to get these decals on first, and then sort out the position of my pilots, and then I'm going to go to work on making sure that this trim rim here sits in nicely, and then we can start working on test fitting the glass. So there is an awful lot to do, and it's all got to be done in the proper sort of. When I say proper, I mean, you know, you want to make sure that you're doing this. You want to make sure you're doing it in an organized process, and you don't goof up here, because especially when you're going to trim the cockpit glass, because we've only got one of those. You can take stuff away, but you can't put it back. So we've got to make sure that sits beautifully. We'll get those decals on, and we'll start working on final paint. But I think you can see she's coming together. She's coming together quite well, and I am super happy with it. Super happy with it. There's a look inside there. There's a profile there. And then we'll spin around, and there's the back there. So, all coming together. Back on the paint scheme just a second. I've got some com art. It's called Light Dust, and it's got a lot of yellow in it. It's quite a creamy color, and I don't know how well it's going to pick up on these cameras, but I think you can see that I'm sort of getting some cross dusting, and I'm doing it a little heavier because my final will sort of soften that back. So, but what I'm using this to do is actually just to create some drama, and then we will come back and soften some of this out. But I think you'll start to see how I'm just sort of giving this some shadows and some depth, and yeah, that's looking really good. Super happy with that. So a little heavier in some places and not in others, but that's how we'll get our tones, and we'll get some contrast in depth. So I can clean my brush out now, and I can go to my final on the paint scheme. And I've been, playing with different kinds of whites, and that's a good thing, because that's okay. It's going to get some washes, obviously, and some pastels to really tone it down. I've got to put in my engine colors now, which I'll hand paint those in. And after I've put my engine detail back in, then I'll go back, and I'm going to give this its final white, and then we can give this a clear coat, and it'll be ready for decals. I've got my console deck and the rear of the console drying, I put a coat of gloss on that, ready for obviously for the decals. Well, I'm doing a little bit of work on the cockpit now, and what I'm doing is I'm checking for fit here, and I'm also checking for my pilots, because I did not use the two that came with the kit. I felt they were a little too oversized. By reducing the size just a little bit, it sort of scales everything up, and I feel like this is a little more proportional. And I just love the detail on my figures. I think they're really quite powerful, and they feel correct to me. But because I made them a little smaller, they're not sitting nicely, so I'm going to build a little pedestal for the seat. So that's what I'm working on. I'm just going to cut some small pieces of tubing and get those into place, and have him or have my pilots sitting quite proud, really. They've got quite a bit of height to go here. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to cut these in, and then we'll look at that proportionately, and then that'll take care of the cockpit. I can actually go ahead and just get last looks on where this console goes, get this glued down, and that will allow me to figure out just exactly what I'm doing with my cockpit glass. I have cut it sort of to size, but not completely, because once you cut it too short, that's the end of the game. So I'm being very cautious there. There are 3 small black squares that belong on the bottom, and they're down. And that is it, as far as I can tell from this instruction sheet. And then we've got these grids. Now I chose to use mine in the cockpit, so I only got one of these, but I'll put it here, probably just behind. I'll off-centered it. That's okay. And then I've got one more for the top. But we're not going to spend an awful lot of time under here, so I'm really not concerned about that. It's one of those things where, you know, you wish sometimes they would give you just a few extras, but they don't. They give you just enough, and that's how that goes, because there's always going to be, with these inkjet or laserjet decals, you're always going to have some issues. One of the things I would say to you is always, like, grab a little piece of carrier film on your decal sheet, and if it's got a number or something, cut that away, and then test your different setting solutions, because some are harsher than others, and some decal sheets, yes, they crinkle up and then they ease out, but some will be so strong that they won't even give it a chance to do that. They'll just buckle and never come back. And I've had both. So you do have to kind of, you know, watch that a little bit. I think, yeah, I know what I'm going to do. I'm just going to, well, if I center it, that probably looks okay right there. I mean, you're supposed to have 4, but I don't know if it matters. You could just put one on one side and leave it, call it a day, and you'd be fine. You could put one here. You could put one there, and you'd be fine. In fact, I sort of like that better. And I know there's a bunch of you out there in YouTube land are going to go, "Oh, that's not right. That's not canon. That's not how it looked." Well, if you can find me a frame grab forget the filming miniature, a frame grab of this thing from both films that shows the placement of this. I will profusely apologize and forever be ridiculed, but I honestly don't think it matters. I honestly don't. And these are going down like a charm now, so I'm not going to complain. There we go. And that is all there is for the bottom. What I've got to do now is I've got to do a little bit of weathering, which is what I'll do. I'm going to do some pinstripe, some panel line washes and just a little bit of scorching, because once the post is in here, it's going to be very difficult to do any of this. So now's the time for me to do it. So that's what I'm going to do next. Just going to get some panel line on this, and I'm using probably just going to use my my good old-fashioned Tamiya, because it's fine. I mean, I've got yeah, it's doing fine. I put a semi-gloss on here, and you can see that that's going down quite nicely. And then this will be quite easy to clean up. So I'm just going to stick with my panel liner. Very easy for me to maintain. And then I'll come back through with some pastels, and we'll do some pastels. But I think that's punching through quite nicely. Yeah, very nice. I don't know if you've ever had a decal God's Day, but today the gods shined on me. And George, if you're watching this video, and that's George of Timeslip, your decals behaved admirably. Not a single problem. Now, I don't want to curse myself because I've still got these 2 red stripes to put on here. I didn't go with 7, I went with 5. But they went on like absolute champs. Even this long strip behaved. I mean, I don't know what I did today to deserve that, but I'm very grateful. Everything went on beautifully. No complaints here. Okay, so all I've got to do now is get this red stripe on, and clean up the panel lines from the top, and then the panel lines from the bottom. How sad I don't know my top from my bottom, but hey, I'm sure somebody out there will have an appropriate comment or wisecrack, but there you go. Okay, so I'm going to let these dry, and then obviously they will, I'll get my panel line on, and then we will seal all of this, and let that sort of dry in. I think we'll probably let it dry in overnight, let it really kind of dry in. And then we'll do final assembly. The next challenge I've got, and I don't mind telling you, I've got to clean this thing, but this cockpit window and the nose frame, which I'm putting in last. I'm not going to put my bottom in. Well, come to think of it, I'm not sure why. I'll take another look at that. I mean, you could put that nose, this piece is what I'm talking about right here. You could put this in, and then try to squeeze your glass into it and let it sort of pop into place. You certainly could do that. for some reason I'm resistant to that, and I don't know why. But you know, you sort of go away for a minute or two, then you sort of rethink things, and then you come back and you go, huh, well, why didn't I do that? Hey, that's cheating. You're not supposed to be looking. I'm supposed to be finishing up and then revealing it. Now you're here, you caught me putting some com art smoke on it, but I guess I'll let you stick around. Love my com art smoke. And if you don't have it in your arsenal, you should have some. So I'm just kind of just dirtying up some things here, just giving it a little... It's wonderful stuff. It's very friendly, and it's easy to apply. And when I want streaks, I just hit it a little harder, and I get these streaks, and I do like those, and they give it some nice depth. Couple of little hits here and there, just to kind of add some intrigue. Coming around the sides, just kind of giving a little bit of soot. Now, you know, I know this is the world of Star Trek. It's utopian rather than dystopian, but I like, you know, it's a tug. It's a working class thing. And I feel like it should have a little dirt. So that's what we're doing here. Just adding a little bit of excitement to it. And I think she's looking really good. She's blinking. She's doing all the things she's supposed to be doing. So I'm very happy with that. Okay, well, I'm going to just continue on doing my little smoke pass. Then we'll get the front glass in. And then she'll be ready for some beauty shots. We'll come back and we'll do some final thoughts about this Starfleet tug. Well, here we are. We've made it to the end of this build. And I'm thrilled I did this model. So this year at Wonderfest, I'm wandering the halls. And obviously came across the Timeslipcreations booth in the dealer room, and there it was, you know, in its raw state. And I said, want that, love that, why not? Interesting. You know, it's interesting because for a few seconds at the end of 3 and at the beginning of 4, this tug makes an appearance, and it's been captured by somebody who thought, hey, you know what? That would be cool to memorialize. And that's the key for me, is that it appeared in a film. It was a piece of history. It didn't get seen. There was not a lot of information out there, but Timeslip and George over there had this kit. There may be others out there. I'm not aware of them. But when he got them back in stock, I grabbed one. And I'm glad I did. It's a bit of an ugly duckling for me personally in terms of what it is. And it is not canon to the film. As you can see in the back, I changed out my lights. And I'm glad I did my engines. I just didn't like it. I think this looks a lot more Trekian to me, but hey, you know, to each his own, right? And then of course the cockpit, I added a lot of light to it. I've got a blue Pico chip SMD on the floor that's washing the rear wall. I've got a green Pico SMD in the rear wall, and I've got some yellow and green chips in the console there. I've got some Evans design flashes, nav flashes, top and bottom, and I obviously added these lights here, and of course I added my front flood. And there she is. A lot of fun. I added a couple of other little details too. There is an awfully ugly seam here that I've hidden with this little sort of bumper piece, and I think that came out quite well. This glass is tricky because, you know, one lethal cut wrong and that's the end of your piece. But hey, what can I tell you? Lots of fun. My decals were wonderful. They behaved beautifully. No complaints there. And obviously, you know, my concern about my chevrons was incorrect. Thank you, everybody who let me know that the revised, I guess George must have revised the decal set, but they are terrific. And, you know, here it is. Here it is, the Starfleet tug. So I just took a quick video of it, which I will put on TikTok, but I thought this was a lot of fun. Just to sort of give you a sense of it as it's pulling away. Looking really fun. Yeah, this is the battery box I was talking about. I was waxing poetic about battery boxes. They're fun. I mean, you know, any kind of a box like this makes perfect sense for me. If I was to take this to any kind of an event, right, and you wanted to display the models, the pigtails with plugs in the wall is just, it's a thing. And this doesn't, you know, it doesn't suck a lot of juice the way my Dalek did. So when I had my Dalek at Wonderfest this year, I was putting 9-volt batteries in that on the hour. But this will burn for hours and no problem. And it's a very easy, fun way to transport your batteries. So I did that. Okay, so that is it for the Starfleet tug. Thanks each and every one of you for your comments and your support. I do appreciate it. If you want to get a hold of me, I'm spruverse@gmail.com. I'm always posting on my Instagram account, which is spruverse. Hey, don't forget to like and subscribe. If you're just finding me and you're watching this video, please hit the thumbs up button. It means an awful lot to me, and it encourages me, and it's good to know. Don't forget, on my channel page, I've got Buy Me a Cup of Coffee. If you want to contribute to, that's my charity fund, where I will use those funds to build off-camera models for those who request it, who can no longer build for themselves. I try to do 1 or 2 a year, and it pays for the model shipping and everything else. So, and it's a nice way. It makes you feel good, right? But you can also contribute because you like the channel and you appreciate the content. So there you go. The Starfleet tug, as seen in 3 and in 4 of the movies. It is a Timeslip Creations piece. You can reach George on Facebook if you want to get this kit. As always, I wish all of you, please be safe, be well, build something, and I'll see you next time. Take care, everybody. Be well.